What is up, people? It is me, Monster58. Welcome back to another video review, and today we're going to be taking a look at the highly controversial Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager class Nexus Prime. Currently, for me, the last of the 13 primes that we need to complete this entire pretty cool collection of prime figures that we have never really gotten in the past before. Now, the only figure that I think I mentioned in the last video talking about Liege that I really am sort of waiting to see what they'll do is with Vector Prime. I'm kind of hoping that they're going to do something like an Alpha Trion, where instead of just rehashing the remold and retool of G-Axis, which he was, I'm hoping that they'll make a new Age of the Primes version of him, but we'll obviously see when that rolls around. If that does decide to roll around, I really hope we see something like that in the future. But regardless, here is the box for Nexus Prime. So take a look at the box here. You can obviously see the very nice Transformers Age of the Primes. You can see the Nexus Prime, the 13 right there with his symbol. You can see obviously the Transformers in 23 steps, the very nice artwork here of Nexus both in his robot mode as well as in his vehicle mode. Some more nice artwork here where you can see Nexus Prime right there. And then you can obviously see the very nice artwork here once again with his artifact, the Enigma of Combination. And then you can obviously see the nice stuff on the back here for the product shots as well. If I'm not mistaken, the Enigma of Combination can obviously combine Transformers with one another, but from what I also saw is that it can actually combine, like, consciousness of organic beings like humans, and even, like, deceased spirits, which is incredibly interesting for a character like this with, that kind of, an artifact. I didn't expect the Enigma of Combination to be able to do something like that. But regardless, when it comes to the packaging, I think they did a really amazing job with it, folks, and so without further ado, alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we have the Transformers Age of the Primes, Voyager class Nexus Prime, out of the box and in his vehicle mode. And guys, I gotta say, this is probably the worst part about Nexus as just a figure. At the end of the day, it just looks to me like a brick with wings and a cockpit. There's not that much creativity, and my main issue with it is the fact that it's not very streamlined, and a lot of these alt modes for these primes have been very streamlined or robust or something like that. This guy just kind of looks like there wasn't really much creativity, and that was one thing I've been praising the designers for doing, is that they've really found a way for a lot of these primes to feel very unique and very creative. Meanwhile, this guy very much not so, in my opinion. I believe that there's a fan mode out there that really hones in on a more streamlined vehicle mode, which I think is much cooler than this. But at the end of the day, yeah. But getting into the details, I do like the cockpit and how it looks. The Enigma of Combination actually stores under here, and you can see it right here. So it looks very nice. You can see a symbol, obviously. The nice silver paint, the yellow in the center looks really good. Just very nicely molded. And then you can see there's a peg hole right there, and then you can just use that peg on the back of this. You can see that right there, and then that'll just peg right on like so. Very simply stores in his vehicle mode, but his vehicle mode, well, I'll say, is very well painted. You can see the very nice black here looks really good. This very glossy black, I really do like that. You can see the nice red art obviously across the board. The blue also looks really nice. It's this nice deep blue. Then you can obviously see the nice gold and silver here to go along with the rest of it. Obviously the gold for the cockpit as well. Overall, the paint is really nice, and I'll tell you right now too, the plastic quality in this guy feels really good as well. Like, he feels really robust and solid. I'd say for him and Liege, definitely two of the most robust feeling and the most dense feeling of the primes that we've gotten thus far. Really, really feels nice. But there's no landing gear or anything like that. On the bottom here, I'll show this to you right away. You do have the Nexus Prime head. You can see that. That is, obviously, he is essentially like, he's like Silverbolt, or he's like Menasor, or sorry, he's like Motormaster. So at the end of the day, the head sculpt does look really good, and it's on a ball joint too, so that's cool. You have see the nice visor as well, the nice silver for the face mask, and see all that. But the instructions in this one do not tell you how to combine him into his like alt mode. So you can see here, it tells you all the accessories and everything like that, but there is no instruction on how to transform him into his combined mode. I imagine when we get his limbs next year that we will have some sort of instructions on how to do that for this figure in particular. But regardless, when it comes to the vehicle mode, at the end of the day, my biggest gripe with the fact is that it just looks like a brick with wings. Because I'll tell you this, these are also accessories, and if you remove them, which are his wings, then you look at that. Like, these look nice too. You can use these as accessories as well for guns. You can use them as guns. Even if you wanted to remove these, you absolutely could and just use them as guns. But they just peg here on the side. You can see those peg holes right there, and then you have the pegs here. Then these just peg on like so. But yeah, this is my biggest gripe. But again, plastic quality feels good, very well painted. You can see that across the board. He just looks really drab and kind of boring. But what we'll do is we're going to do some size comparisons. So we are going to set Nexus Prime off to the side here, and we're basically going to bring in everyone else that you know and well with the primes. Alrighty folks, as per usual on my channel, here he is with the Transformers Legacy United Infernac Universe Deluxe Class Magnus. As we'll say, when it comes to his size, he definitely ekes more in the Voyager class size, and that's really nice to say. The Transformers Age of the Primes Deluxe Class Micronus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Deluxe Class Solus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Deluxe Class Alchemist Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Deluxe Class Quintus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager Class Alpha Trion. The Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager Class Prima Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager Class Amalgamus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Leader Class Onyx Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes Leader Class Megatronus the Fallen. The Transformers Age of the Primes Leader Class Liege Maximo. And finally, folks, here he is with the Transformers Studio Series 86 Commander Class Optimus Prime. And so, guys, for his transformation, it's not overly complicated, but it's not super simple either. It's more edging towards the simpler side, kind of like Liege, but definitely a little more simple than that, too. I wouldn't call it overly simple. So, to transform him, first we can remove these accessories, which are his wings, and then we can set them off to the side for the time being. Then from here, what you can do is you can take these sections and fold them out, like so. Then from here, I like to take these sections and you can rotate them all the way up like so, and just keep them like this. These will become his arms. Then from here, you can break each of these off. Then you can rotate one around like so. And then you can rotate the legs down like this, rotate this like this, rotate this around like this, then take this section and fold it like so. Luckily, the only hollow space really is in the back there, so it's not all too bad. So again, do the same on this side, rotate this around, rotate this down, rotate this all the way around. Fold this on the side, and there you have his legs essentially transformed. Then what you can do, take this entire waist section, twist it on the back, then take this section and fold it out. Fold the head out. I'm going to bring up the camera just a little bit here. So they had the head like this, then you can fold it up like this. And then from here, what you're going to do is you're going to butterfly joint these, fold them in like so, tab them in, and then rotate them like this. And then from here, you can rotate them all the way around so that these little guns are facing the outside. Then take the fist and then rotate it like so. Do the same thing here, so rotate it again so that those little black guns are facing on the outside. Then you can rotate this and do that. And then from here, all you got to do is you can fold this section up like so. And these little two gray tabs will tab right in, so just tab those in. Or, come on. There we go. I guess just didn't have everything tabbed in correctly, but there we go. Okay, got that all lined up. Straighten this guy out, and the last thing you want to do to sort of complete his look, you can just take these little tab holes here on the side. Then you can tab the wings in like so on either side. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, here we have the Transformers Age of the Primes, Voyager Class Nexus Prime, in his robot mode. And guys, there is one issue, really big issue I have with how this guy looks, but we will save that until the conclusion, because I really want to make that a very important point when we're getting to the conclusion of this figure. But overall, to my understanding, he is based on the design of like that calling card type thing that we saw in Transformers 1, which inherently I'm not mad about, but the one thing I will tell you straight up is he looks very generic. The one thing I've prided with all these primes throughout every single one of these releases, really besides this, maybe Alchemist I'd say is the most generic out of all of them if you remove Nexus Prime, they're all very unique. Look at Onyx, look at Liege, Quintus, Micronus, even Alpha Trion has a nice unique design. All these characters have very unique and very striking designs in the way of just like you can tell they're really their own characters. For this guy, I just don't get that. He looks very plain, and it's not that he looks plain necessarily in a bad way relative to other Transformers. He looks plain in a bad way relative to his fellow Primes. Especially when you're looking at these designs that I'm going to put on screen, especially the design we see on the box. Like, I have the box still on me. Like, we're going to set this guy. Like, this is Nexus. Like, this is this design that I'm going to put here. That's him. And so, getting this guy, it's like, that's so misleading. I believe that's him, if I'm not mistaken. That's supposed to be him. That's Onyx, I believe. That's Alchemist, I believe. Yeah, that's Alchemist. So you guys see what I'm saying? Like, when you get this as, like, the design, and then that on the box, and then you get this, it's quite misleading, isn't it? And it just makes him feel so boring compared to the rest of them. And at the end of the day, he does look fine. Like, let's look at the head sculpt. It's actually well painted, like I told you, in the vehicle mode. Very nicely painted. You can see the nice visor. You can see the silver, the red. It does look good. Like, I can't deny that. But just looks so plain. And then you have his nice, chest little, symbol there. Not the symbol with it, but you get the nice gold and everything. And going down here, the detail is actually really nice. You can see all this nice sculpted in detail. Nice silver there. The blue looks good. The gray looks good, actually, in this context. I like the black here with the gold here on the feet, or towards the shins. These look really, really nice. And then he cleans up really, really well. Like, look at that. I mean, he cleans up absolutely fantastically. He can hold his artifact, but it's kind of lame how he holds it. He kind of just holds it out like this. I kind of wish that you could hold it kind of like the Matrix or something like that. I don't know if it had like a little stand or something like that. But yeah, regardless, you can also, I'm going to remove these anyway right now. You can use these as guns, so you can peg these in like this if you wish to do so, and then you can use these as guns if you wish. Those look actually pretty cool. But at the end of the day, I just like to keep them on the back here because it just, in my opinion, it completes the look and accidentally knocked that Enigma of combination off, so that's my bad there. But you guys see what I'm saying? Like, overall, he's clean and he feels good in terms of moving him around and whatnot, but man, does he ever look so generic. I'd say between him and Alchemist, I'd say he looks the most generic out of all the primes that we've gotten thus far. And for one to end on with him and Liege, I kind of regret reviewing Liege before I reviewed this guy, but I had Liege before. I got Liege before I got Nexus, so I wanted to review him first. It's just a bit disappointing that we get such a generic looking Transformer, especially again when you have that design on the box for him, and then you look at the wiki and you look at the research and that's one of his designs and you could have went with that. You see what I'm saying? So regardless, again, he does feel nice. He actually looks fine. Again, it's just the expectation versus the product, and I think that might also be part of our issue in a way as fans, but at the same time, when you show that design on the box, am I really expecting that much different than that? You see what I'm saying? But regardless, what we're going to do is we are going to be doing our size comparison. So we're going to set this guy off to the side here, and I'm actually going to back up the camera a little bit and raise it up because obviously we have like we have like Onyx and we have like Liege Maximo and stuff like that coming in here. So yeah, get ready for a lot of comparisons here. Alrighty folks, here he is with the Transformers Legacy United Infernac Universe Deluxe Class Magnus. As you can see, he does have that Voyager class scale, and then you'll see that obviously throughout these other comparisons that we're going to do here in a second. Here's the Transformers Age of the Primes, Deluxe Class Micronus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Deluxe Class Solus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Deluxe Class Alchemist Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Deluxe Class Quintus Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Voyager Class Alpha Trion. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Voyager Class Amalgamous Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Voyager Class Prima Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Leader Class Onyx Prime. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Leader Class Megatronus the Fallen. The Transformers Age of the Primes, Leader Class Liege Maximo. And finally, the Transformers Studio Series 86 Commander Class Optimus Prime. And so guys, now let's get into his articulation. At the end of the day, his articulation is pretty solid. I have nothing really to complain about. Head is on a ball joint, so you can look a bit up and down, a little bit side to side. Full 360 is very easily achievable. You can do full 360 as well here. Just got to move these if you want to get them out of the way for that. He does technically have like faux butterfly joints, but they're kind of jammed in because of that. So if you want to use them, you'll have to do this and then something like that. You have to unpeg that from the back. Rotation at the upper part of the bicep, 90-degree bend at the elbow. And you have wrist articulation, but it's really hard to get in there. These joints are pretty tight at the end of the day, which is still a nice thing, though. Full 360 at the waist. You can kick forward about that far. You can kick back about that far. 90-degree bend at the knee. Rotation the upper part of the thigh. And then you have some solid ankle rocker pivots. So at the end of the day, this guy has some really solid articulation. That's something I will say that can't complain about too much, is that he does move around very nicely and the joints do feel very nice and tight, and sometimes a little bit too tight, particularly in the wrists. Alrighty folks, now time for his reverse transformation, which is pretty simple, getting him to his vehicle mode, getting from his robot mode, just as more or less as simple as getting from his vehicle mode to his robot mode. Again, not super complicated, but not super simple either. So what we're going to do, straighten his legs out and straighten his arms out. And what I like to do here first is you can rotate the fists like this so that they're facing the front and facing up like this. So do the same on this side. And then from here, what you can do, you can take the wrists or the forearms and rotate them so that these pegs that you see are facing the front, so you do the same here, straighten the head out obviously as well. And then from here, what you can do is you can unpeg these and remove them. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this entire section where you're going to untab it and rotate it a bit down like so, like that, just so it's like that. And then from here you can fold the head in, then you can untab all the section and rotate it outward. And what you want to do first is you want to take this section, you want to fold it down like so, and then fold this down like this. Then from here you're going to rotate the entire waist. Then you're going to take these sections, you're going to fold them so that they tab in like this on the front of his shins. And then what you're going to do for each side here, you're going to rotate this all the way around like so. You're going to turn this like so. Then you're going to bend this, and then you'll see there's a gray tab, and that'll just kind of slot right in here. And then this red tab here will go into this little black slot right there, if you can see that slot. So that'll go right in there. Do the same on this side. So again, rotate this around, rotate this so that the knee is facing inwards, bend this up like so, tab all those tabs into place. And then what you want to do is take these sections, you want to rotate them down, and then you'll see that this tab will go into that little tab hole there like so. Do the same on this side, very simply like that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold the foot, and then these tabs on here will go into these two tabs here. So just line that up nice and straight. Oops. Like so. I always, there you go. Come on, just get this side. Like that. Make sure everything is nice and secure. Then obviously take these and tab them in like I showed you earlier in the vehicle mode. Like so. And like that. Come on. Like that. And ladies and gentlemen, here we have the Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager class Nexus Prime back in his alt mode. So folks, for my final concluding thoughts on the Transformers Age of the Primes Voyager class Nexus Prime, I want to say something. This is being recorded in post, and the reason it's being recorded in post is because I went back and I rewatched my original conclusion when I was recording it during the time I was actually reviewing the figure, and I felt that it came out a little more bitter and harsh than I would have liked, and there were some things that I said about the figure that at the end of the day were a little bit hypocritical and unfounded, and after watching some reviews and stuff and mulling it over for the past couple of days, I decided to, re-record my conclusion, and so you're going to be just hearing me in post recording this right now. Quick disclaimer, this conclusion is obviously going to be a bit longer, and it's going to be in a different structure because at the end of the day I do have a fair bit to say about Nexus Prime in general. So usually I go over the detriments, then I'll give you the positives, then I'll go over a score and a recommendation or a no recommendation. So that's going to be thrown out all the window here. So let's start off with looking at Nexus Prime as just a figure in a vacuum. Let's look at him as just a Transformers figure. And he's actually pretty solid. The worst thing about him is his vehicle mode. Like I said, he just looks like a brick with wings and a cockpit. At the end of the day, I don't think there's that much creativity, and that more streamlined fan mode that I've been seeing going around online, that one was much more towards what I would have wanted for like a streamlined, mode. Now, there's some people out there that do like it, and at the end of the day, if you like it, I can't, tell you different, but I've also seen some comments saying that he kind of just looks like the front of a ship, like a detached front of a ship, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that. It kind of just looks like the front of a detached ship. However, that being said, he does have one of the best plastic qualities and hand feels in the entirety of the primes in general. Out of all of them, he absolutely probably feels one of the best, most robust, most dense, best hand feels, next to like Leech and Alpha Trion. I'd say, who else would be up there? Would be like even Prima was pretty decent. For the most part, a good chunk of the primes did, have, iffy hand feels. I'd say Solus, in comparison to Nexus, feels like glass. But the other thing that's really good about him is his paint. At the end of the day, he's very well painted. The reds and the blues work really well together. You got some black and some gray as well. And you got a little bit of silver and gold as well. So at the end of the day, very well painted. Then when you transform him, not too complicated, not too simple, just right in my opinion. It's pretty easy to get used to after a few tries, and then finally getting him into his robot mode. And this is where I actually think he looks pretty solid. I know that they went off a couple of designs, mainly using the design from the Transformers 1 movie. And when it comes to the, overall look, he looks fine. And the fact that he comes with, the guns as accessories, I do wish he could hold the Enigma of combination in his hand like he does in the box art. But at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. I just like having it stored anyway. And when it comes to his joints and everything, he moves very well articulated, and his joints are very tight, which is no surprise because at the end of the day, he is kind of like Silverbolt or Motormaster. He's the core of the Combiner, and speaking of the core, he has limbs coming next year. And so with that, let's transition into me applying all of that Nexus Prime lore to him, and this is where the figure kind of starts to fall apart a little bit for me. At the end of the day, one of the things that I have a big issue with here is that they're calling him Nexus Prime as if he is the full Combiner to me, right? The full combined mode would be Nexus Prime, and it's kind of like giving us Silverbolt and calling him Superion, or Motormaster and calling him Menasor. At the end of the day, I know it's obviously a bit different considering he is a Prime, but that's how it still kind of feels to me in a way. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Like, Silverbolt is not Superion. This is not Nexus Prime, and I know someone on Reddit even said that, and I agree with them, this could be easily, you know, like Skyfall or Breakaway, which are a couple of the limbs that Nexus has. It could easily be one of those instead of Nexus. I understand that they wanted to give us his, you know, his artifact. They wanted to give us everything, at least for his core, so they still called him Nexus Prime, obviously with the line as well. I understand that, but it still feels like that to me. Another big issue I have is a reason I was saving this for the very end of the video was the fact that I don't know if this is the intention. I know some people are happy about it, but at the end of the day, he looks very generic to me. When you look at characters like Liege, Megatronus, Onyx, you look at Micronus, you look at Aquintus, very unique, very distinct characters. Amalgamus, hell, you know, he looks insanely different, you know, very unique. He just looks very generic at the end of the day. And you know what he reminds me of? This is what I was absolutely saving. He reminds me of the Autobot troopers from Transformers Fall of Cybertron. I'll throw a picture up on screen. Change the yellow on that and change it to blue, and tell me that the head sculpts in particular look very, very similar. And for me, a Prime that looks like a troop builder is kind of, I don't know. I just don't like that feeling. I know that some people do, and I respect if you do. That's very fair, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I just like, after looking at all these very unique-looking characters, I'd say the other most generic one would be Alchemist. He's probably the other most generic one. But at the end of the day, I kind of wanted a more unique look for this guy, you know, especially when you look at the box art and then you see that design that I believe is very clearly Nexus Prime, like the design I showed you guys earlier in the review. At the end of the day, to see that and then to see this is kind of like a whoa moment. Like, even Onyx looked relatively similar. Liege obviously has some differences, but you see what I'm saying? Like, I just wish that they went with a more unique design just to give him a little bit more character to stand out. But again, if someone likes it, if you guys like it where he is a bit more understated, that's perfectly fine. That's just my personal feeling about it. And the other big issue that I do have is that I know the fact that he was supposed to be a leader class figure, but they cut the budget. But I actually will corroborate this from my previous conclusion, is that one of the biggest shames I have here is the fact that of all the figures to cut the budget for, this guy was the one who ended up having his budget cut. The character who would arguably need that budget the most, considering he is a combiner and the very first combiner to set the stage for all the other combiners in the actual series and the continuity. So it's a shame that of all the figures to cut his budget, it was this one. And if I had to guess, I'm not saying that this is the plan. I'm just, you know, theory crafting. I assumed that they were going to do something similar to what they did with the Commander Class 2-pack of Long Haul and Hook. And I'm not the only one in also saying that I think he would have worked much better as a Commander. And that brings into question, would you have sacked Onslaught? Would you have sacked Armada Jetfire for it? At the end of the day, personally for me, I would have sacked Jetfire. I don't think it really necessarily needed him, but we have been getting a lot of G1, so I understand either way. So if you wanted to sack Onslaught or Jetfire, would have preferred either one of them, but you see there. And the fact is, with the Onslaught and, with the Hook and the Long Haul 2-pack, they were able to give us essentially 2 Voyager class figures with a bunch of extra gubbins, and so you can see how I feel like if they were just giving us this as the core and calling it Nexus Prime, and then they could have given us a bunch of other stuff to be able to combine him, you know, a self-contained combiner would have been really cool in this case, but at the end of the day, again, I understand he's got limbs coming, and so I'm not complaining in that respect. It's just the fact that he is called Nexus Prime, and the biggest detriment I'd say here coming towards the end is the fact that he can only combine with Superion. He can't even combine with Menasor. I don't think he's compatible from what I've seen online. And so to have a character whose whole gimmick in the lore is being able to combine because he is the first combiner, and having him not being able to combine into anything as of right now is a real shame. Again, am I happy we're getting limbs? Absolutely, I'm happy we're getting limbs, but it's just that, you know, that sort of feeling, Nexus Prime can't combine with anything unless you get like a $90 extra figure. You see where I'm coming from? Like, it's just, I wish that even the instructions for how to turn him into his combined mode were on the actual instructions, but as I showed you, they aren't. And so at the end of the day, I initially gave him a 5, and I was looking at that, I was like, man, that's actually really harsh, because I think a lot of people are actually looking more positively on this guy, and I also agree after messing around with him a little more after the review. At the end of the day, I really do think that this figure is probably like a 6.5, I'd say. I barely ever do halves, but like 6.5 or a 7. I'd more towards 6.5. I know that might not be much in reference to 5, but at the end of the day, I just think that the lack of combining stuff, and the lack of, having to get a $90 figure to be able to combine in this guy, period, is a bit of a shame. And so when it comes to a recommendation for this guy, that's the hardest part too. I can't tell whether to recommend this guy or not, because on one hand, I would say yes, because at the end of the day, we do know we're getting limbs for him, so we will be able to eventually combine him. And also, he's actually a really solid figure on his own. I probably would have given him like a 7 or an 8, honestly, if the figure didn't have like all that lore attached to him. But at the end of the day, I had to give him, like a 6.5 or something like that, just because I feel like that lore still has some weight here, and the figure that we got is a bit disappointing, referencing that lore and the fact that he was supposed to be a leader ended up being a Voyager. So that's on one hand. On the other hand, however, I'd say no, because $45 for this guy, and then the price increases are really sucky here in the US. In addition to that, he can't combine with anything unless you have Silverbolt, and so it's one of those push and pulls. If you had to put a GUN to my head, I would absolutely say probably no over yes, but at the end of the day, I can't tell you how to spend your money. And so I would say I would recommend you buy this if you are already collecting the primes, to make your collection complete, right? And the other reason I would say is because you're waiting for the limbs, and the main reason I'm doing it is obviously for both of those things, to complete my collection of the primes and waiting for those limbs to come out to see if that whole combined mode was worth it. And that's the other part that I'd like to say, is that's the other part that stops me from outright recommending it. We haven't even seen what the combined mode looks like. We've only gotten more or less him attached to Silverbolt, and that's the only major combined picture that we really have of this guy. So we don't know if they're going to be repaints of aerial bots. We don't know. From what I understand, I don't think he has a frame at all. He's just like kind of like the old Combiner Wars stuff. But you can see where I'm coming from. So I hope you guys understand all those reasonings. Again, feel free to discuss it in the comments below, and feel free to have discussions with me, but that's just how I personally feel. Again, a very self-contained good figure in a vacuum, a solid figure in a vacuum, but you attach all that lore, and that's where some of that disappointment starts to creep in here for me. So I did pick mine up IRL, so definitely be on the lookout at your local Walmarts, your local other stores. If you're not in the U.S., look at something similar to a Walmart. You might have this guy in stock already. I found mine literally 5 or 6 days ago, so keep an eye out at your local stores, because that's when I picked this guy up. But I did have mine initially pre-ordered on Big Bad Toy Store, so leave a link in the description of that. Also leave links down below to Hasbro Pulse, as well as Amazon if you guys wish to use the online retailers instead of looking IRL. But overall, I think that's it for the review. So I thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please like, comment, rate, and subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also follow me on the socials. Those will be linked in the description below. And with that, guys, and once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video review, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.